Tarot cards, ancient divination tool, or something else. Hey guys, it's John sitting here in my studio on a rainy day outside with the bottom of my mug of coffee in front of me. Finishing it just for you. I wanted to hop on and talk about tarot cards. Now, I know a lot of tarot card readers, and I've been to a lot of tarot card readers over the years. And if tarot cards is something you believe in, I completely respect that. I see them as more a tool for people to focus their own connection. But I find that majority of the tarot card readers I know who are any good eventually give up the tarot card anyway because they don't feel that they need what they would consider a crutch any longer. But I want to talk about tarot cards for a specific reason. But a lot of people tell me that they're ancient and they go back to before Moses and all kinds of things of that nature. Well, when you dive into the history of tarot cards, you find something very interesting. I find that people tend to think of their spiritual practices, and they tend to like to believe that they're ancient. For instance, I can't tell you how many people have asked me whether Jeshua did Reiki, but Reiki wasn't invented until the 1920s. So the idea that Jeshua would have done Reiki is almost it's almost laughable because it wasn't even in existence. So the concept of it wasn't even in existence until the 1920s. The 1920s was a very interesting time in America spiritually. We had just come out of the spiritualist movement, and we were going into the theosophical movement. And the theosophical movement was basically the father of modern New Age divination tools. They used a lot of them and a lot of various things. But tarot is an interesting story because the tarot deck and the tarot game of tarot was invented in Venice in the 1400s. And it was exactly what I just said it was. It was a game. It was a card game. And specifically, it was a card game that was like using trump cards. Some cards had more value than other cards, and so whoever had the high hand won the game. But it was from the 1400s, and there's no evidence at all, and although people will tell you there is, they've never been able to show anyone any evidence there at all that they were ever used for divination when they were first created. It wasn't until the late 1700s when you started seeing people use them for divination. And the first documented divination deck was right around the 1800s. It was like 1796 was when the first original divination tarot deck was created. So we're talking about just the younger than our country, younger than the United States. When you look at the way we think about divination tools nowadays, people will often think of them as ancient. And the story that the tarot cards are older than Moses was never spoken of before the late 1700s. And then somebody claimed, and I forget the person's name, but it's easily looked up because I just looked it up and I saw it. So she actually, the first one to say that they're older than Moses was the late 1700s. There's no evidence that they're older than Moses. There's no evidence that they came from Egypt. These are all things that were said in the late 1700s during the spiritualist movement. Madame Blavatsky comes into play, and she was the one who actually was one of the original founders of the theosophical movement. And she is using tarot as a divination tool. And then when theosophical movement came in, they started using them as well. And tarot became a divination tool really in its heyday in the 1900s. And they reached their pinnacle in the 1980s. So they weren't really a big ancient divination tool. They're more of a modern divination tool. And when you look at it from the perspective of what are they actually divining, all they're doing is they're getting information, and they're just using cards. But like I say, the majority of the readers that you'll see who are good, who will give you information that will help you make choices actually don't even really look at the cards that much. They put cards down and they get feelings, and they tell you the feelings they get. So they're more of a focusing tool than something of ancient power of some kind. When you look at them from that perspective, then you start to say, well, do I need the tarot to read? Do I need them to have the specific cards to read? Really, what that is that's leaving it up to chance as to what comes out. And now some people will say, well, when I draw the card, I'm drawing the right one. It's very interesting. Years ago, there was a book written about numerology, and it was specifically about your life path numbers and all of that. And I remember being in a room with a couple good friends, and one of the women in the room gave by accident her wrong birth date. And when they read her number to her, she's like, "Yeah, that's me. That's totally me." Then she figured out she did the wrong birth date, and the number was wrong. And they read the second one, and it was, "Oh my God, that's me too. That's me too." I think people look for things within imagery, within text, within ideas. They get a perception of, I'm going to this reading to have this reading, and the information is going to be coming through to me. So the belief in that is going to start creating that experience. So it always comes back to the belief of the person reading, the belief of the person who is being read. I find that the majority of tarot card readers are no longer very valid for me when I go to them, because I have less belief that it's divinely delivered. I think that they believe it's divinely delivered, but I go there with the idea of, I know this is just these are just cards, and everything is within this person in front of me. So, but I also know that people like Edgar Cayce and all the greatest readers in the world, all of their readings are peppered with their own belief systems. Edgar Cayce's work is filled with Christian ideologies, and his whole life from the time he was a child was devoted to Christ and the church. So that's why all his readings are very Christ-oriented. So everybody who's getting any information from anywhere is coming through their own filter. And the divination tools right now, in my opinion, are coming from a lot of people who chose them to be more than they were. And they're actually putting more power in the cards than they are in themselves. And if they would let the cards go and come back to themselves, they would get clearer information. Because now the cards, in my opinion, make them one step away from the truest information that comes through them personally. I'm not in any way, shape, or form bad-mouthing tarot cards. Everyone's on their own personal journey. I've said that in so many videos. This is not bashing tarot cards. This is giving you a history of tarot cards. They're a card game. They didn't become divination tools until the late 1700s, which is when the first divination deck is the oldest divination deck that we know of, happened. There is no divination decks before that. And we know the game started in the 1400s in Venice. So it comes down to, for 300 years, it was over 300 years, it was just a card game. And then it became divination tools as people decided that they were finding meaning in certain things in the 17 and 1800s. So I just wanted to come on and talk about the tarot cards in this way, because people tend to give these cards much more power than necessary, because all the power is within you. Always has been, always will be. All the power is within you. And when you start putting all your faith in things outside of yourself, you're actually limiting what can come through, because you're looking at a card and you're saying, "Oh, this is what this means," and giving the card the power of meaning, whereas all meaning comes through you anyway. So, yeah, when I look at tarot and tarot card readers, I find beautiful, loving people, first of all. I also find some people who lean into the cards hard because they're not trusting what comes through them directly. And so I think if they would put the cards down and just exhale and start listening, they would get clearer information. In my opinion, just in my opinion, But I just want to give the history of tarot so people can understand what it is they're looking at, what it is they're experiencing, what it is that is being played out before them. And that's my thought on this. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See you. Bye.